NFL Week 5 preview show. What's going on, guys? Welcome back. If you're new to this channel, my name is Jeff. This is Lock and Cash Sports, here to take you through the entire football season. I am coming off of my worst week of the year so far. Week 4 was not kind to me. Capped off by last night Monday Night Football. I make that video on here yesterday for you guys. The Goff under passing yards prop was looking amazing at halftime. I think he had 80-something passing yards at the half. I'm thinking we're going to cruise to a win with that one, and along with the Dolphins-Titans under. That's another story. But I'm thinking that's going to be easy, and then out of nowhere, huge play after huge play, and they're not deep throws. This was my handicap for that prop. They weren't deep throws, but the yards after the catch, I think 70% of his passing yards were yards after the catch. Insane run by Montgomery when he was running over people. Jameson Williams, 70-yard bomb where he just caught it in the middle of the field, ran the rest of the way, untouched. So kind of a tough beat there, but it is what it is. Now, after week 4, which was, like I said, my worst week of the season so far, let me tell you where I'm at for the season, because a lot of the times I'll look at this stuff and I'll say, I get depressed and this and that, let it affect your mental. But even after the horrific week 4, I'm down 7 units on the year. So before this week, I was in the green. So I'm not going to panic too much. I'm going to just take a step back, reevaluate. I've already released 2 plays for week 5. Just try to pick my spots a little bit more carefully and try to tighten things up as we approach the middle weeks of the season, which I honestly love. I love the middle weeks of the season because I think there's some good spots for week 5 already that we can take advantage of. So 2 plays have been released there, but I do want to go over the entire slate with you guys as we do each week here on Tuesday mornings and let you know what I'm seeing and where I am leaning. Okay. Let's start off on Thursday Night Football. You got the Buccaneers and the Falcons. This should be a great game for a change on Thursday Night Football. Divisional matchup between 2 teams that are going to be competing all year for a playoff spot. The Bucs initially opened here 2.5 or maybe 2 in some spots. They're not down to 1.5, so they've taken some money. The total sitting at 43.5, juiced slightly to the under. I was on Atlanta, guys, last week, which was one of those games where it's a true testament to trying to beat the closing line. I know some people make jokes, closing line value is worthless a lot of the time. Most of the time, the spread doesn't matter, and I know that. I agree with that, but you should try. Where you think the line's going to move, if you can beat it, why not try to beat it, right? So we had the Falcons minus 1.5, which ended up winning. If you played it late at 2.5, it was a loser, so they win the game by 2. But honestly, after that game, which I really liked the spot for them against the Saints, I'm not jumping to back them here against the Buccaneers, who looked great on Sunday against the Eagles. The offense looked like it was back after that one dud they had against Denver. And I like the personnel that Atlanta has on the defensive side of the ball, but I'm not loving what they're doing on offense right now. The running backs just look a little bit underutilized, both guys. Even though neither of them have looked great. Bijan did not look good on Sunday. Actually, Algiers looked a bit better, but they just both look like they're not being used to their full potential. And I don't love the coaching staff there, but I do like the personnel on the field. I like Cousins, but there's something not clicking about that offense. No offensive touchdowns against the Saints. Now you're playing your second straight divisional game, albeit you do get to stay home, which is nice, but second straight divisional game after that one, which was a miracle win, a 58-yard bomb of a field goal to win the game. I got to lean slightly here to Tampa. I think Tampa's a good teaser leg as well. Teaser legs are going to come back. I know I keep saying that. They're getting crushed every week. They will be back. But I think maybe you could do Tampa from plus 1.5 to plus 7.5 here. In terms of the side, I got to lean Buccaneers based on what I'm seeing from the Falcons offense. And I would lean under in the game. But honestly, aside from maybe some touchdown props or some player props, which have been good, aside from last night, have been good for us this season, I probably won't have any action on the side or total in this one. Probably will be a pass for me. Going over to Sunday, we have our first London game this year between the Jets and the Vikings. This is an interesting one because the line has dramatically changed. The Jets were minus 2.5, minus 3, I think, around the opening line. It has now completely flipped after they lost outright to the Broncos as an 8-point favorite. Vikings pull off another upset as a road dog in Green Bay. Great game by them. Listen, this line is juiced a slightly, minus 2.5. The under has taken a lot of action. It was 42, I think. It's now down to 40.5. International favorites is something that I'll tell you guys about, and I think it's 60 plus percent, 64, 65% ATS to the favorite in these international games since they've started doing them. So that's a pretty strong trend. You've got Sam Darnold facing his old team. You've got O'Connell facing a team that cut him, although it was a while ago, and those guys maybe are still not here, but there's a lot to. I'm just not sure how you back the Jets here. I know that, like, looking at this game as a pure handicapping perspective, I know there's value on the Jets because the line is probably an overreaction. But I just don't know how you back them after what you saw on Sunday from them. That was a debacle, that game. And what you're seeing from the Vikings look completely legit. They're not scraping wins by. They're torching teams. So I'd be concerned. I am a Jet. If I was to say if I'm a Jets fan, I am a Jets fan. I'm concerned. I lean slightly here to Minnesota, but again, I don't love playing these types of games. Overseas, older quarterback. I don't know. Something about this game just doesn't sit right with me. You want to throw the Jets in teasers, I understand, but this is a teaser leg that I personally am going to stay away from because the Vikings have just been destroying everything in their path. Slight lean to Minnesota here, although I don't love the spot for either team, and I don't love what I've seen from New York. All right, on to Sunday. Oh, well, later Sunday afternoon, you got Cleveland headed to Washington. The Browns are plus 3.5 on the road. This is a spot that I do lean strongly to the Browns. This is kind of like your situational handicap here, or your overreaction handicap, I should say. Cleveland getting 3.5, total 44.5. The main question I have here is, I know everyone's going to jump to back Washington, and Jaden Daniels looks like the real deal, and I do think he's good. I do think he's the real deal. I watched him play a lot in college. He was very good. Has translated really well to not just the NFL, but this specific offense they're running, which is just very, very good right now. Very strong. Here's the thing for me. I think this line is, if you look at, like, if you're an NFL handicapper, you probably have some kind of power ratings list, and everyone's power ratings list is going to be slightly different. But when I'm looking at my power ratings list, for me to get to this line, I have to basically say that Cleveland is a bottom 10 team and Washington is near a top 10 team for me to get to this line, a close top 13, top 4. And I'm not ready to say that. I don't think that's true. I just saw Deshaun Watson play a pretty good game in a divisional game on the road. That dropped pass, or that tipped pass by Amari Cooper that led to an interception, was horrific. He throws a 75 or 80-yard touchdown pass, and it gets called back for a holding call that was honestly a little bit questionable. I don't want to say it was a phantom holding call, but a little bit a questionable call, right? What happens if those two plays don't go that way in that game? So I think he just played a pretty good game, Deshaun Watson, in a loss. And now you're giving me a full field goal and the hook on the road against a team that, listen, the Commanders are obviously a good offensive team. That's, I think, at this point, objectively true. But there's a difference between being good offensively and then being unsustainably great offensively, right? And that's where I think they're at. And this is one of those teams where I look at them and I say, man, this defense is so bad, right? They're near the bottom of the league in all defensive metrics. This defense is so bad that as soon as this offense hits a little bit of regression, just a little bit, they are going to drop football games. They're going to lose games outright. I'm not ready to lay 3.5 with a team like this. I don't think they're 3.5 points better than Cleveland. So a pretty strong lean here from me to the Browns plus 3.5 in this one. All right. Juggernaut kind of a matchup here between Buffalo and Houston. The Bills are now laying 1 on the road. Interesting. This line was flipped when I looked at it last night. It was Texans -1 and -1.5 in some spots. And let's see here. Let me just take a look at all the books because I'm following along here on DraftKings. And yeah, Buffalo's -1.5 on FanDuel, -1s across the board here. I'll tell you straight up what I make this line. I make it -2 for Houston. So just based on what I'm seeing, I got a little lean to the Texans. But I will say, I don't love this spot here. Okay, you're coming off of a tough divisional game where you had to squeeze out a last-second win against the Jaguars, where you had to come all the way back and steal that game away from them. Buffalo just got blown out on the road, all right, embarrassed on national television against the Ravens. Now you got this kind of 1 p.m. sleepy game. It's not national television. They come in. Maybe they want to be a little bit sharper, a little bit more of an emphasis on defense. A little bit tricky in terms of the spot, but I do think you just have some pure line value on Houston, who I do project as the better team. The question here is just, do you think Buffalo, with their defensive injuries right now, that linebacking core, which is pretty banged up specifically, and their secondary is not really good to begin with, can they hold off all these weapons that Houston has, right? Nico Collins had a huge game against the Jaguars, man coverage. The Bills are going to play a little bit more zone. Very tough game. I'm not surprised this line's a pick, but I do see, or basically a toss-up. But, man, you're now approaching minus 120 on the money line for the Bills. So you're going to give me Houston as a home dog? I think it's a little bit too far. I lean Texans here. If this were to get to 2 guys, I probably would play this. If this got to Buffalo -2, I'd probably jump on the other side with Houston +2. That's my thoughts on this game. I also kind of lean under on this. I initially really liked the under, and when I did a little bit more of a deep dive, I don't love it as much. It's at 47.5 now. It opened 46.5. Slightly into the under, but don't love it. All right, Ravens versus Bengals. This line just hit a key number, so let's talk about this. AFC North divisional matchup. Ravens now laying 3 on the road. Totals 50.5. And this I say hit a key number because this opened 2.5. And the Bengals were kind of sitting there at 2.5 for a bit as a lovely teaser leg option. And now it's Ravens -3. So I think this is one of those games where it's a pretty clear, obvious. Actually, you still have some 2.5s in the market, by the way. MGM, FanDuel has a 2.5, Caesar has a 2.5. So let's call it 2.5 across most books. You got a 3 on DraftKings and a 3 on BetRivers. But here's the thing with the Ravens. I had them on Sunday night. But when you watch a game like that, the same game that you saw on the previous Monday night, Buffalo does that to Jacksonville. Then it gets done to them by Baltimore. And I know part of that is matchups, so I get that. But anytime a team has a massive game like that and blows another team out, you could look for a little bit of a letdown the following week. Especially now, I mean, you add onto it that it's a divisional game and you add onto it that it's on the road. I think it's a little bit of a tough spot for the Ravens. Now, on the other side, genuinely concerned, how on God's earth are the Bengals going to stop that rushing game that the Ravens have? They've been really bad against the run this season. They have looked susceptible to all the teams they played, even winning by 10 at Carolina, and that game was really never totally out of reach for the Panthers. Obviously, you saw what happened to them with Washington and with the Patriots, who ran all over them. Both of those teams ran all over them. Their best game that they played was on that game against the Chiefs. And I think that kind of means something here, guys, is what I'm trying to get at. Is that this team kind of plays to their competition a little bit is what I'm seeing. So I think they'll get up for this game. I have the slightest of leans here to the Bengals +3 at home now that you're going to give me a field goal. But this is probably, again, I know I hate to be boring, but this is why we handicap games. This is probably a game that I'm just going to stay away from. If this stays 2.5, I think you got a solid teaser option with Cincy because they should be able to throw on the Ravens. Okay, they should be able to throw the ball on the Ravens, no problem. The Ravens are good against the rush. Joe Burrow should have a good passing game here as long as the offensive line holds up a decent amount. Slight lean to the Bengals because I think they'll be able to put up points that will keep them in the game. But better option, teaser. Take that 2.5 up to 8.5. Combine it with something like the Buccaneers or the Raiders on the road. We'll get to that game in a bit. Even the Colts on the road, 2.5. So, but slightly inconsistency here. I think you could play Baltimore in this spot. They're a good team, but I think the situation calls for Cincinnati, and there's plenty of trends, by the way, on home divisional underdogs as well. So, Cincy +3 would be a slight lead. I haven't played it. All right, next game. Okay, on to the Carolina Panthers, who are taking on the Chicago Bears. Carolina getting 3.5 points on the road, and your total is set at 42 even here. And this is a tricky game. This is a game where I got to slightly lean to the dog because I do think the Panthers are going to be able to put up points here with Dalton as QB. The Bears just came off of a pretty nice win at home, but let's be honest, if you go back and you watch any of that game, which I watched some of it, if you watch most of that game, I think most of you agree, the Rams generally outplayed them in that game. Some careless mistakes, some boneheaded decisions, but overall, I think the Rams outplayed them. So I can't get from you being Bears -3 in that one to now being 3.5 against the Panthers. The Panthers have looked lively on offense. They haven't looked great defensively, obviously, and that's the big concern. This is just, there's no way I'm betting this game, to be honest, but we're going through each game. I give you a small lean on Carolina just because you're getting 3 in the hook. I could see them putting up a fight, but there's no way I'm betting this game. I just have there's no interest in this game for me. I think the line is set right where I would have it or close to where I would have it. The total is set close to where I would have it. It's just nothing here for me. There's no situational advantages. One team, The Panthers just lost at home. The Bears won a game. They get to stay home. There's nothing really here for me. Colts versus Jaguars. Jaguars are the last team left without a win. Indy getting +2.5 on the road. Totals 46.5 in this game. I like Jacksonville here. That's my strong lean. -2.5. It's sitting at -120. You could find -15 out there though on the -2.5. This looks like it's approaching 3, guys. And if one of these injuries for Indianapolis ends up coming to fruition, like if Richardson is confirmed out, Jonathan Taylor's confirmed out, this will get to 3. I think it already touched 3 actually. If I remember seeing a 3 and it came back down, but in any event, I like Jacksonville here to finally get a win. I know they've looked inept at times, but also at times, guys, they've looked like a very competitive football team, right? Go back to week 1 against the Dolphins. They played really well in that game, ended up blowing it at the end, but they covered the spread. And then, of course, the game that they just had against the Texans, a divisional opponent, you have the lead with a few seconds left in that game. So hard to say that this team really should be 0-4. The only game really that they were completely out of was the Buffalo game. 3 other games that could have went with a couple of bounces here and there could have went their way. I think Jacksonville is better than an 0-4 team. I don't think they're a very good team, but I think they're better than an 0-4 team. And I think that this line should be 3, especially considering the injuries on the Colts side and the game that they just came off of against the Steelers, a rough and tough physical game. Give me Jacksonville here -2.5. That's a play that I will be taking for week 5 to get their first win of the season. Divisional game. Oh man, this is an ugly one. The Dolphins at the Patriots. I'm seeing Miami +1 right now on the road, and the total's 35.5. If you gave me your money and said throw it down this game, I would just hand it back to you. Nothing. I got nothing here. I show a little bit of a line value on New England, but I'm not betting it. I'm not laying points with the Patriots, so it's a pass. There's other things I can tell you about this game. I just don't think it's worth it. You want to look at divisional unders, not worth it. Honestly, no, don't bet that game. All right. Over to the, NFC West. Cardinals taking on the 49ers. Arizona's getting 7.5 points here on the road. Total's at 49.5. I'm a little bit kicking. I kind of kicked myself on Sunday night, right? Because in that Patriots 49ers game, I had a strong lean to the Niners -10. And I thought them coming off of losing outright as a road divisional favorite to the Rams, I thought that could have been a smash spot for them at home. It ended up being true, but I thought the stronger angle was that they would hold the Patriots to basically no points or maybe 1 touchdown. So I ended up taking the under. Long story short, and the game went over. And I wish I would have just laid the 10 with San Francisco. But in any event, I'm looking at this now at -7.5. Man, the Cardinals coming off of a game where they looked kind of lifeless. 2 games in a row now where the offense hasn't looked right and the defense has looked pretty bad. Washington ran the ball all over them. What do you think San Francisco's going to do? I understand that 7-point underdogs or higher are perfect this season at closing. Teams that have closed 7 points or higher are perfect ATS and straight up. But this ain't the game. I think this is the game where it finally swings back the other way. And I think you see San Francisco win this game by 10 or more. I would have a small lean to the Niners -7.5. Am I going to play it? Probably not. I also would lean over in this game because I think they're going to be able to get whatever they want against that Cardinals defense. And I think the Cardinals might actually be able to have some success offensively for a change, which they couldn't do last week. And by the way, that last week, they made the Commanders defense look better than they are. It was just boneheaded stuff. AFC West divisional game, Raiders versus the Broncos. Denver laying 2.5 at home, totals 36.5. I don't know how the Broncos have been able to do this. I know there's some stuff out there about Sean Payton, after week 1, basically weeks 2 through 6, he's legendary against the spread. Maybe that's, if you want to say that's what's going on here, maybe. I don't know what that even means. When I look for trends or systems, I try to find as close to causation as possible, not correlation. And that doesn't seem what is the significance of these weeks for Sean Payton? It's kind of weird. So them laying 2.5 at home is I think a little strange to me. After pulling off 2 back-to-back upsets, a 6-point dog on the road, they went outright. An 8-point dog on the road, they went outright. There's no way I'm going to lay 2.5 now with the Broncos at home, especially against a divisional opponent that plays good defense. The Raiders are good defensively. The Raiders are coming off of a win. I think the Raiders are a great teaser option in this game, so that's where I would go. I think you combine them with something like maybe the Bengals at home with the Raiders, maybe the Colts on the road, but I think the Bengals are the stronger one. Cincinnati, Las Vegas might be like the teaser of the week, honestly. So best option here for me is if this gets to 3, maybe give me a little action on Vegas, but if not, use the Raiders in a teaser. That's one of my favorite teaser legs for this week. The Packers laying 3.5 points on the road against the LA Rams. The Rams coming off a tough loss, and the Packers also coming off a tough loss, but really they were never in that game until the very, very end of it. The second half Packers, though, that we saw in that game, I think that is more what Green Bay is. Like, they were kind of embarrassed in the first half there. I obviously do think that they should be a favorite in this game. 3.5, I think, is a bit high. I'd be more likely to play them at 3, but I think you got better options here, which is the over, right? You got the over in this game. This is an indoor game. The Packers are going to come into this game wanting to score points. The Rams defense is beat up and it's not great to begin with. And on the other side, you got Stafford, who's going to be able to sling it a bit. And the Packers have been giving up a lot of points on defense, man. Go back to the games they've had this year. They've given up a lot of points. So I think strong lean here to the over 48, but nothing on the side. If this was 3 in the hook, I'd lean slightly to LA as a home dog. If this were to get to 2.5, it's now 3. If it were to get to 2.5, I would lean strongly to the Packers. So, and it's just 3 is just such an important number in football, but lean over 48 in that game. I think you'll see a lot of points. Giants at the Seahawks. New York's +6 on the road, total 43.5. This to me is all Seahawks here. I don't know. I mean, I know it's a 6-point dog. I know the trends from this season, but these are not going to continue all year long. The Giants just played the Cowboys tough at home. They have extra rest. I know this is a rest disadvantage spot. This is typically a spot where you would bet the road dog who comes in with extra rest versus a team that played on Monday night. But man, that Seattle offense just looks really, really good. They got whatever they wanted against the Lions. It just came down to a matter of who was going to score more points in that game. Smallest lean for me to Seattle here, but this is probably another game that I won't touch. Then you got Sunday Night Football, Cowboys versus the Steelers. Dallas getting 2.5 points on the road, and the total is 43. I kind of like this under, guys. It's ticked up a little bit, but I do kind of like this under. It's a primetime game. You know how those go. Steelers are going to be coming back home off of a game where they gave up a lot of points, so I think they'll be motivated to have a good defensive game. And you kind of know the deal here with the Cowboys. If they cannot establish any kind of running game, they fall into a very predictive passing scheme, and the Steelers should have success trying to defend that. And on the other end, I know the Cowboys are going to be missing some pieces defensively, but still, Pittsburgh is not scaring you on offense right now. Just not a great offensive team. Struggle to get touchdowns, struggle to even get in field goal range most of the time. So lean here slightly to Dallas, but I think they're a very strong teaser leg because even if the Steelers win, how are the Steelers winning by margin in this game? They're not winning this game by more than a touchdown if they do. They're winning this game by 3 or maybe 6 points if they win it. So give me Dallas up to 8.5 as a very strong teaser option here. Combine that with Vegas, combine that with Cincinnati. You got some good dog teaser options here. The one favorite teaser option is San Francisco. I do think they win that game at home. They've been so good at home. You know, you got to think of Brock Purdy at home when you look at that too, by the way. He's only lost to like the elite quarterbacks at home. So really good option there. I do think they win that game against Arizona. Dallas on Sunday Night Football is the lean and a good teaser option there. Monday Night Football is an interesting game, man. This is very, very interesting. You got the Saints on the road in Kansas City getting 5 points. They're coming off a really tough divisional loss. The total's 42.5 in this game. That 42.5 might be a little low because of the Rashee Rice injury. And obviously the Chiefs still without Pacheco. So you've got, here's the thing with Kansas City. And everyone's going to say Rashee Rice is so important to that offense. And I agree. He is. He's a big part of that offense. But we've seen Mahomes work with less, to be honest. And it just doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If you can run a route, he's going to put the ball where it needs to be. You just got to catch it most of the time. The Saints defense, obviously still with some injuries. Their O-line still banged up. The Chiefs defense is going to be probably the star of this game. The number 5 is tricky. I make it 5.5 myself. or maybe even 6, depending on the situation. But it's a tricky game. I would slightly lean to Kansas City. I think maybe sell the whole narrative of the injuries and the offense and all that stuff. They just put up 17 points, but that was a road game against a divisional opponent. Divisional games, you have to treat them very, very differently than just non-conference, non-divisional games. They're much different. So I could see the Chiefs winning this by a touchdown. I would lean Chiefs -5. I understand a play on the Saints. I get it, the spot. But this is one of these games where my strategy has been for primetime games. If I don't see any value or I don't love a side or a situational spot, I go to the props market. I search there. I look at some touchdown scorers, like in that Jaguars, that game where the Jaguars and Bills and the Commanders and Bengals played, when we hit both touchdown scorers. So you can go find other options versus just the spread. But for me, slightly lean to Kansas City. All right, that's the entire slate, guys. Let me know what you guys think about these games down in the comment. I gave you my strong leans for this week, which I'm probably going to add more plays, but I'm strongly leaning to Cleveland and I'm strongly leaning to Jacksonville right now as probably 2 plays. And Houston was the one that I mentioned if it got to 2. If we get Texans +2, I'd fire on them as well. So keep those in mind as you're looking at the slate this week. Let me know which games you like. I also just discounted our season pass. So like if you want to join us for the whole football season, it's now a prorated price. So it's like around 40-ish% off. It's $2.99. It's down in the comments. I'll link it down there. And other than that, let's have a great week 5, guys. Thanks for watching.